We got Ralph Macchio here, who, of course...
Is he here?
Yeah, he's here. He's right outside.
Okay, good.
He's starring in Cobra Kai Season 2, which is now available on YouTube Premium. Man, this series, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to check out any of it, Jim, but when Season 1 crept into YouTube Premium, it was almost this thing where you were like, what's YouTube doing trying to create a premium service? Why would they do a series about the Karate Kid stuff? But it caught fire, this series, to the point where obviously it's got a Season 2. And, you know, it's not this novelty thing. People are talking about Cobra Kai like it's one of the best series on TV, and it's not even on TV.
I thought you were going to say best around, and I'm glad you didn't go for the low-hanging fruit.
Nothing's going to ever take it down.
That's right.
The thing.
Were you scared of going on, because you think this is not going to be on television and people are going to watch it? It's scary, right?
Wait, say this again?
Were you scared just going straight to YouTube?
Yeah, well, listen, I think the low expectations initially with Season 1, you know, YouTube is going to be a silly 80s cash grab. This sounds like a bad idea. It's going to be, I think all that helped us when we came out, and these writers and creators have just such a great, unique vision to the show, and that just took off. So now we seem really intelligent.
I mean, it's also helpful that you got everybody back.
Yeah, yes.
Right,
yeah.
that the story's actually told. Here's why it's so great, and this is why, I was able to lock onto it so quickly, because you watch these movies, especially in the 80s, right? And you have these movies where there's this big heroic ending, and all you want to believe is that Daniel-san went on to have this fabulous life where it was just more success after more success and more success, and Sweep the Leg Johnny went on to have his whole life over here. And you start this show in Season 1, and you look at both characters, and even though one's got money and one doesn't, the reality is that for both of those characters, life never got any better than that one moment. The one moment at the end of Karate Kid was the culminating moment for both of those two when they're kids, and they're just living off of that glory ever since.
Right.
It's great.
It's fun because it's, life is more complicated than the black and white of what the original Karate Kid film was, good over evil. And the difference with Cobra Kai is that it dives into the gray areas. There's moral ambiguity between these characters. Episode to episode, your allegiance can change, and so by allowing the characters to breathe in a format, say a 5-hour movie cut up into 10 half-hour parts, which essentially is what each season is, allows for that. But they, in Season 2, certainly they both have such good intentions.
Totally.
But that winds up.
So is he a more likable guy than I haven't seen it. Is he a more likable guy than he was in the
Sweep the Leg Johnny?
Johnny?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, he's trying to right the wrongs and shake his demons and really with good intentions, but he can't get out from under who he is. So you root for that, right? On the flip side, you have LaRusso, who has had the greatest mentor, a human Yoda in his life, in Mr. Miyagi, right? He's had all the success. He's found a beautiful woman, great family, positive, financial security. But yet, this Johnny Lawrence and this Cobra Kai is such a wound on his past that he can't allow it to become popular. So it becomes something that actually derails him from his own focus and balance in life. And therein lies the journey for these two middle-aged guys trying to navigate that part of life.
One of the reasons why I liked it so much was because, YouTube is what made me look at Karate Kid completely differently when those theories
theories came out, right?
Yeah, wait a minute. What if Daniel was the asshole the whole time? What if he's the villain of this movie?
How funny is that video where they show how you come to this nice town and fuck everything up?
And I'm watching this video and I'm going, Johnny was right.
Right.
And then, at least more so in Season 1, I think, than Season 2, but in Season 1, you really get that perspective, because as Season 1 starts, it really is told from Johnny's
point
perspective.
Of view. And the first 4 or 5, before Daniel visits Miyagi's grave in Episode 5 of Season 1 and sort of recalibrates his life and begins to fill that void that's been missing for 8 years. For that point, he's set up as, by design as the successful guy that's haunting Johnny Lawrence still,
right?
And so by design the show's set up that way. But it feeds into that. The concept. I mean, there was no one in 1984 or since watching the Karate Kid film that ever didn't root for LaRusso to win at the end of the game. It's just over time, the internet, pop culture has I mean, he came into this town and stole his girlfriend. He was just a guy trying to fix himself, and this nerdy, greasy Italian from Jersey, started doing this. And then when he was rolling an innocent joint in the bathroom, he sprayed him with water. Screw him, he is the bully.
Yeah.
But I don't think it holds water. But
I don't know.
fun.
I thought so.
Yeah,
when I
it
saw
turned
it.
me against you. Absolutely. I had a real thing for the girl in part 2 too. She was a Korean girl.
Oh, she's from Okinawa. Tamlin Tomita is the actress's name. Played Kumiko.
Oh.
She's fantastic. I would love to find. We're always looking for in the long haul of Cobra Kai. Hopefully, we get to do this for several or many seasons. Other characters we'd like to bring back. And
Well, you brought back Johnny's trainer for season 2. Like he's a full-fledged
character
for season 2.
Yeah, the Darth Vader of the 80s.
Yeah.
Right.
The madman who started Cobra Kai. He throws a wrench into everyone's plans. But she's a terrific actress. I think she's on the Good Doctor now or something.
Oh, she's still working?
Yeah.
I do that sometimes. I go back to like an 80s movie and you kind of wonder like what happened to this person. And then you realize, they've been working all along.
They just don't look like they're 17 anymore.
Yeah, exactly. They're doing a TV series that I don't watch.
There's also this great thing about watching, I thought it was even more so in this season 2 than last season, but it was a little bit in last season too, where you've got these 80s movie villains, right? That are having to deal with millennial culture.
Right.
So you've got these guys that are like these super alpha male 80s movie villains that are sitting there looking at millennial high school kids trying to make sense out of any of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of perfect because it's not like the point of view isn't necessarily like, oh, look at these millennial kids. They don't understand. It's more, look at how out of touch these 80s villains are.
Right. That's the one thing with the Johnny Lawrence character is he's still stuck in the 80s and he can't get out of that.
Right.
There's a fun scene in episode 3 of season 2 where he quote unquote discovers the internet. Like that he doesn't have to pay for porn anymore. And it's kind of fun to watch this guy in his 50s trying to figure out what a hash brown or hashtag is. He doesn't, and he uses his students to help him out. And on the flip side, LaRusso thinks he has it all figured out and then learns this season with trying to spread the gospel of Mr. Miyagi and the great legacy and the teachings that helped his life out. He realizes pretty soon that just because he has knowledge of a subject, it doesn't mean you know how to teach it. And so he is up against, consider LaRusso trying to build Miyagi-Do karate and convince millennials that they need to paint fences, wax cars, and sand decks. It's like the child labor laws are coming into play.
You can't even have interns do that anymore.
You can't do it. Not my job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's got an uphill battle, and it's fun. It's fun to touch on that stuff. It pays homage to what made the Karate Kid a great story and within great characters, and yet make it relevant for today in some way. And that's what the show really does well.
And it's weird too. Pat Morita, I'm sure been acting for years and years, and the thing that he gets known for. Happy Days kind of, but
and Arnold.
Yeah,
Arnold and Happy Days.
But this thing,
you just never know.
Yeah, like when it's going to happen because he becomes this iconic character so late in life.
And an Oscar nomination if people don't know.
Did he get an Oscar nomination?
Yeah, for Mr. Miyagi. Yep.
Wow.
It was,
who beat him? Do you remember?
Hang S. Noor from the Killing Fields.
Well, yeah, Killing Fields don't have their own series.
Yeah, they don't have their own
series. Clearly, they messed that up.
They're not rebooting. They're not rebooting that.
That makes no sense.
Vietnam story.
Did you go through any period in your life where you were like, I need to do anything besides anything that could be compared to this Karate Kid stuff? I've got to remove myself.
There was certainly a stretch of time. There was that, I call it the enough already time, which was probably about 15 years ago, late 90s or whatever, if my math. Sure. There was definitely, I've never been, okay, I'm going to talk to Jim and Sam today, but we're not going to talk about that film, and people do that. They do.
I know they do. They've tried to do stuff like that.
He's doing other things
Trust
now.
me, Paris Hilton won't discuss her best work.
That's right. And it was free. No, I think that I've always found that silly and kind of ridiculous. The great stuff now is that as I've gotten younger and wiser, I think that it's so rare you have the opportunity to touch and reach so many people with a story. And I get it because I'll get 6, 8, 10-year-old kids, that on the street that want to show me the crane kick and want to dress up as this character. And, it's amazing you're able to do that after 35 years in a positive way, or have parents watch a movie with their kids. That part is awesome. But to add to that, now I'm on like a show called The Deuce for HBO, which is a really cool show. Maggie Gyllenhaal, James Franco. It's a David Simon show, and we're in our 3rd season, and I get to play this really crooked vice cop from that era who would take money under the table, just like the entire police department did at that time in New York City. And it's awesome to be part of the fabric of that show and yet have this
to do something different.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a non-Karate Kid question about
How dare you?
Are there any?
On Broadway. I really wanted to know about your working on Broadway with Burt Young and De Niro.
And De Niro, yeah, that was 1986. That was amazing. That was a play called Cuba and His Teddy Bear. We did it at the Public Theater downtown, and it was the first time De Niro had been on stage since, he was, I guess, way into early.
Wasn't that
20s.
his only Broadway?
That was his only Broadway and thing. It was a big hot ticket that summer, and we were at the Longacre Theater. It was spectacular. And plus, I grew up. De Niro was De Niro of the '70s, so this was the dream come true. I came out of The Outsiders, which was the first big dream come true role, and then the Karate Kid hit, and then Cuba and His Teddy Bear on Broadway. That was a big summer for me. '86. I had that Karate Kid 2 in the theaters, and the Mets winning the World Series.
So wait,
wow,
it's a big
that's a big summer.
So do they offer you this gig, or do you have to audition?
I auditioned for Joseph Papp, Joe Papp, and De Niro, and I was a nervous wreck, which probably played into the fact that the character was struggling with his father was a very dominant drug dealer, Cuban drug dealer in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and this kid that I played was had an artistic writer mind, and so he was torn between that. So I think the fact that I was a nervous wreck added to the monologue that I had to do.
Who did they play? Who did De Niro play? Who did
De Niro played my dad. And Burt Young played my Uncle Jackie. So, and they were, they were drug dealers, and there was no mom in the picture. So it was me and then the characters that would come in and out of the place. It was really a gritty, probably without De Niro, me and Burt Young at that time probably would have never gotten Uptown. Mm-hmm. Now you could do that Uptown, but back in the 80s, you were either Broadway musical or Arthur Miller or Death of a Salesman. Those were the shows that were on Broadway. So it was a 10-week limited run, but it was amazing. There's certain ones you want to go back in time and just with my knowledge and wisdom now go back and just redo that and just take it all in.
Yeah.
It was happening all so fast. Yeah, everything was happening so fast. I was right in the middle of the Karate Kid fame, and the part 2 was out, so that was the biggest of all that. And I was busy rooting for the Mets.
When the Karate Kids sequels end, are you ready for them to end, or are you going like?
No, I was ready for them to end.
You were, yeah.
Yeah,
you did
at
3,
that
right?
point, I did 3. 2 that I talk about.
You don't like the first one?
I know. I said, that was a beach falls in the middle. But I was because I felt. It didn't take too long for me to feel the heat that was a cage that was, albeit one I'm very proud of, and even at the time, but it was tough to get outside those gates.
When they remade it, were you going like, what are you doing this for? Or were you looking at it as something separate, or?
First I said, how can you remake something? And I'm not that old. It's just like, now on Broadway, like the things are like the 4th revival of a chorus line. It's like, I remember seeing the original. So there's that wake up moment that I'm not.
You're going like, no, it just happened.
In my 50s. This was like last week. I was initially, initially I was taken aback by, well, how do you do that again? Which is what everyone says. Yeah. Now they're doing West Side Story. You would always say, how do you do that again? Mm-hmm. So I was initially, I felt like, okay, I don't go to see movies when I know how they're going to end. So I don't really have interest. I was looking for more original content that would take me on a journey that I'm not used to. But at the end of the day, Will Smith called me because I think I mentioned that I was like wasn't in love with the concept of them remaking the movie. So I got the call. I know I'm messing with you, baby. I know, he said, but we feel that there's more meat on the bones here, and if you want to be involved in any way, and which I didn't, but I respected it. And
Will Smith called you and said, "I know I'm messing with your baby, but now you're messing with my baby.
Yeah,
so you need to." You need
Yeah, could you please co-sign
Well, right
this?
now, listen, Overbrook, which is his company, is one of the executive producers of Cobra Kai, because in that deal with Jerry Weintraub Productions and Sony, they have a piece of the franchise going forward. So I would assume they're quite happy with the success of Cobra Kai.
I would imagine.
So what did you say on the phone to Will Smith? You're like, no, dude, it's fine.
I had an opening line. First of all, he was awesome and gracious and all that stuff. He's always been, to my views, but presented himself that way. But I did have a line because I did meet him once. He auditioned for My Cousin Vinny. And when I was reading for my part, and I said that was the first and last time that I ever got the part, and you didn't. And that sort of got a laugh. And then he put Jaden on the phone. I felt very Obi-Wan to young Skywalker. And they made, listen, that film, the 2010 Karate Kid film, or the Kung Fu Kid.
Is that 9 years ago?
Yeah. It was only enhanced legacy of the original movie.
Although it made people start asking you about Karate Kid again, I'm sure. And you're like, this is what I need right now. Thank you very much. Do you, and I guess people, because they're so obsessed with everything else, forget that, like, that's another, My Cousin Vinny is another movie that is, like, lived forever. There's never been a period of time where that hasn't been a movie that people are like, how great is that? Yeah, do you have any idea when you're doing something like that this is going to be one of these things that lasts forever?
No, I knew, or I felt. I mean, I thought, Joe and Marissa, it was so clear that they just had a magic, together. And then, you never know till they're done. But you look at that. You look at Karate Kid, The Outsiders, My Cousin Vinny. There's three of them that in that small period of time for me, it's pretty amazing that they stand the test of time. And My Cousin Vinny is the late for dinner movie. If it's on, you're late for dinner.
Right.
You just got to wait for that one more setup to pay itself off, and that's one's funnier than the next. And from the entire cast, from Austin Pendleton as the stuttering public defender, and Fred Gwynn as the judge in his last performance.
Was that his last thing?
Yeah, that was his last thing.
Did you hang out with Fred Gwynn at all?
Fred Gwynn, he had two German shepherds. As I know this, the one was named Duchess and the other was named Contessa. How do I know this? Because that's all I heard, all that Duchess, Contessa, Duchess, Contessa. He was just calling these dogs constantly. Gentleman giant of a guy, very private to himself. I didn't get to work with him that much. Obviously, Joe did. And it was...
Didn't you have that one scene with him, right?
I'm in the courtroom for on it, but and him and Joe were totally different. But they look, and just
different
the physical, just in a different way. Like Fred liked to do his coverage. I'd never seen this before, and I found it so interesting. He liked to do his coverage, and for those of you listening who don't know what that is, it's like different camera sizes, like the close-ups and all that stuff. So when it was just on him, he didn't want the other actors to do their dialogue. He wanted them to pantomime their dialogue. So Joe would have to silently Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton do his stuff, and then Fred would take his own cue and do his line.
What a fucking pro.
It's weird.
That's really hard to do, and it's probably because he got something stepped on in 1961.
Somebody must have stepped on a moment that he wanted to deliver, and that's the way he did his
Wow.
stuff. And so, not in the scenes when the camera's wide.
Of course,
obviously you're playing the scene, but when it came in to get those individual beats in a close-up, he just wanted to take his own beats. That's one of the things I remember. But a gentleman to me, and another great performance, but sadly his last.
Is that now when you're doing something like that? That's such an odd way to do it. And you have a guy. Pesci had already done Raging Bull by that point, and I think he had done Goodfellas.
Oh yeah, he won the Oscar for Goodfellas when we were shooting.
So he was still like a very, very legitimate guy. How is that conversation like when you need an Oscar-winning actor to move his lips without saying anything? Is that like a power play, or is that like, hey, look, would you mind?
I don't remember how it happened. I just remember Joe saying to me, "You see what I got to do here?" You believe this? But he wasn't. It wasn't. I wasn't disrespectful to Fred in any way, but he just, and that's when I noticed it because I was, I wasn't in the scene. I was to the side on the table.
When you're shooting a movie with a guy like Joe Pesci, and then he goes and wins an Oscar, and then he comes back to set.
And came back with the Oscar.
Yeah, does the vibe change where he's like, hey guys, I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah,
but,
no, it was awesome.
Then he starts shouting when Fred's doing his close-ups. He's holding a fucking Oscar.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk. If I want to talk, I'm going to take this trophy and put it right in front of the camera.
So was it to get you to agree to do Cobra Kai? Because you could have obviously been like, look,
I was the last guy to come to the party. I was the most resistant to going back to the well.
And was it based on the scripts and the fact that, wait a minute, this is actually a good show, not just a nostalgia
There
grab?
were no scripts.
Oh my God. So
I mean, there were scripts when we shot the show, but it was just a pitch.
Yeah.
It was a fully fleshed out pitch by these three guys, John, Josh, and Hayden. They had already gone to Sony. They had already gone to Jerry Weintraub Production, Overbrook. They got all the ducks in a row. They had Zapka on board. And they came to New York at Tribeca, and we sat there for about 3.5 hours, and it took a lot of listening and understanding. I got it, and my gut was that these guys had all good intentions, and that was the one thing that I trusted, that they did not want to, do the 80s cash grab. Or this is, even though it was called Cobra Kai and it initially starts out through the eyes of Johnny Lawrence, I felt two things. One, this was the time. If I was going to do it, it was now. And the streaming services allow you to do these, like I say, 5-hour movies and cut them up into parts, where 10, 15 years ago, you'd have to make a 2-hour major motion picture sequel. Mm-hmm. And that landscape has changed because it's either Avengers or Harry Potter or kind of nothing.
That's it, yeah.
And so they were receptive to the things that were important to me, which is having the spirit of the Miyagi character woven throughout the series, and that part of LaRusso's life as he navigates his middle age, and how that would have to balance as a two-hander, like a 50-50 once the show got up and running. And we pitched it all together. I jumped in, and I'm still nervous about it. Up until it became available, I wasn't 100% sure, but I was ready to jump into the pool. I just had no idea how cold that water would be, and it was lukewarm and perfect.
Tony Burton from Buckwald is listening to this interview very closely.
Right.
I bet he was the one who was behind. No, take the cash grab.
Take
all the cash you can get.
Tony's a big cash grab guy.
He likes cash grabs.
Well, that's why he has his job.
So are you good at pitch meetings?
He's a good guy.
I'm fucking horrible in pitch meetings. I can't pitch. I'm terrible.
Listen, there were 5 of us. You had me and Billy Zapka, which just blow half the studio executives that blew their minds just having us in the room,
right?
Because they think we're going to start fighting. When it's like, no, those are parts we're playing.
Movies are fake, guys.
The dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, not real.
Yeah.
And the 3 writers who ran, everyone had their part, so it was really a presentation, and they had season 1 down and the ideas for season 2 and 3 and beyond. It was a well orchestrated pitch. It's tough. It's the only time I've ever been in the room where the networks were selling us on them. It was awesome because we went to YouTube, Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, all those, and we had multiple buyers. The thing, which never happens or rarely, the thing that the reason why YouTube won this lottery, if you will, is they had one card to play. They could not compete with Netflix and Hulu unless they said, make 10 episodes. We don't need to read it. And that's what they did.
Wow.
Because that was the way they got you
that's
to...
The only way,
yeah.
That's the only way they would have gotten the show, I believe. And so credit Suzanne Daniels, and who's head over there of their original content. And she didn't want to do that, but she knows she would not have had the show. And then from the YouTube perspective, they had billions of Karate Kid hits. They could look at all those metrics and data analytics of how many people view videos from that are associated with Karate Kid. So, and who gets more eyeballs than YouTube?
Well, and like I said, the synergy of this idea that, like, the whole theory of what we were talking about in the beginning of the interview of Daniel being the bad guy and Bill,
right.
That all comes from YouTube. So it's almost like you're going right into this organic thing.
Right.
But I think it was worth it for YouTube, because I know a lot of people who didn't know anything about it, like wouldn't even consider YouTube Premium until this series came on, and it's a real quality, oh my God, you have to see this show. And all of a sudden now YouTube can flush out this whole...
Yeah, and going forward, I believe they're going to, I don't know when their official stuff is on this, but they're going to, like the first episode is available to everyone. There will be a time, and they're working on this now, that you can watch the show with advertising commercials and see the show and not necessarily be a premium member. The thing is with the show, as soon as you watch episode 1, you don't feel like waiting another week to watch it with commercials.
Right. It's going to be a once a week.
Yeah, that's they're in discussion right now for going forward. So
it is such a binge show. Like it's one of the all-time.
Yeah.
Like it's one of these shows where
Wait, is this show all released at once, or is it released
on premium?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
on premium you'll get the first episode, and then it drives you right to the subscription base.
It's one of those things where when it first came on, I was like, let me just watch it to see what it is.
Right.
Like just for the nostalgia, just for the fun. Like, okay, I want to see what these guys are doing. And over the course of 2 days, it was done.
Right.
Like you stay up way later than you thought you would.
That's right.
You get through 7 episodes the first night.
Well, and they're easily digestible at a half hour.
Yes.
So it strings together. No, it's awesome, man. I appreciate it. It's we're loving it. These things happen occasionally, and it's nice to have all this stuff going on right now.
Want more Jim and Sam? Catch up with full episodes and interviews from celebrity guests anytime on demand using the SiriusXM app.